We are live from TechNet Cyber 2023. I'm Kate Macri, Deputy Editor at GovCIO Media and Research. And joining me today are Lily Zeleke, who is Deputy CIO for Information Enterprise and notably is one of the JWCC leads. And then we also have DoD Chief Software Officer Rob Vietmeyer. You're pretty new to the position, right? You joined recently. So I'm really excited to hear from both of you about what you guys are working on this year. So to start off our conversation, I would love to get a brief overview from each of you about your roles and how you're supporting initiatives such as JWCC, JADC2, and Zero Trust at the department. So Lily, you want to start?
All right. Thank you so much for having us today. As you said, I'm at the DoD-CIO, the Office of DoD Chief Information Officer, Deputy CIO for Information Enterprise. In my portfolio, we have a variety of things. As you mentioned, JWCC is one piece, and it's a high priority because it is really part of our software modernization implementation plan and strategy implementation, which is really bring to bear enterprise cloud, accelerating enterprise cloud. And JWCC delivers that. So we're really excited about that. The award of JWCC happened in December, early December. And really, JWCC is a contract. So you mentioned Zero Trust, you mentioned JADC2, and other initiatives. Really, that's what JWCC enables us to do is implement the joint C2 command and control that we need, the cybersecurity that we need. And as modern software practices like DevSecOps, which I'll let Rob get into more details about, but these are the things that cloud activities enable us to do at speed and scale and really enable the security piece of it. In my portfolio, there's other things we do, such as IT portfolio management in general. Defense business systems are a big part of it, defense business systems management, where I can tell you a lot of tech debt issues that we have to deal with, which also really highlights some of the reasons why we're having to push from a cloud and the futuristic perspective. And yet we also need to make sure that we're bringing our legacy capabilities to the future. So we're sort of operate as the glue and the enabler for that. Again, I mentioned software, so I'll let Rob get into a little bit of detail on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for the opportunity here. And this is a really exciting time, right, and to be the DoD Chief Software Officer. We live in a software-defined world, and our military capabilities are increasingly dependent upon on software and our ability to rapidly deploy resilient solutions to changing mission needs, to changing cyber threats, to continue to counter our adversaries on the battle space. And we have not paid as much attention as we need to software. When we started a while back with how do we drive modernization, the focus was on cloud. The focus which was really more of the IT infrastructure. And we really need to be able to couple our IT infrastructure with continuous delivery of new capabilities. And so that's what we're trying to bring to the department. So how do we start to incorporate development, security in our operations teams to change the paradigm we've had in the past where we looked at production systems and that's what we're going to secure and that's what we're going to operate. But development was something else, right? That was a second-class citizen. We're now realizing that to be responsive in the modern world, to take advantage of AI and to where do we need to be, that development can no longer be a second-class citizen. We've seen a lot out of the White House and the executive orders on focusing on supply chain, secure software development, software bill of materials. Increasingly, we're starting to realize that our ability to go from concept to operations in the blink of an eye is absolutely essential to where we need to be. So it's an exciting time. You mentioned concepts like JWCC and Zero Trust. That is building in place the foundation that we will build this next generation delivery pipelines and delivery capabilities from. When you talk about JWCC2, really that's in my mind, the Joint Staff has laid out this vision of where warfighting needs to be. What do we need from our military capabilities? So we're starting to build in place the platform for delivering those capabilities, enabling that JWCC2 from the IT perspective on up.
Absolutely. So, Lily, my understanding is you're one of the leads for JWCC, which everyone wants to know about. What are some of the interoperability challenges you expect while juggling multiple cloud service providers, especially because when it comes to cloud modernization within DoD, we already have the Army's Enterprise Cloud Management Agency, CARMY, as key liaisons in this endeavor. And then we have DISA HAC, Navy's Neptune, Cloud One. How are you thinking about all of that?
That's an absolutely fair question and a good one, really. And I would ask the same if I'm looking from the outside in. So JWCC, first, let me just say it brings capabilities that we had gaps in, for example, tactical edge, top secret requirements. Secret requirements. We have not packaged cloud vehicle in such a way that now we have unclassified, secret, top secret, multi-vendor, direct access to the CSPs, which translates to, honestly speaking, to our ability to get to commercial parity a lot more easier. But also it really leaves room for the integrators and others to take part in this process. So why do I say that? I say that because the cloud platforms that the military departments bring to the table is a critical part of it, because they can purchase the cloud services and capabilities from JWCC, but ultimately they still have to implement and use cloud and apply cloud, to Rob's good point, to do their mission in their own way and within the context of the department's mission. So all of them, the platforms, will continue to do what they're doing, will continue to optimize for their military services. But ultimately, JWCC brings so much to the table where we really want to utilize it for, at an enterprise level, what it brings to the table, all the CSPs directly, hyperscale CSPs. With that said, we also, this allows us to be able to now look at our cloud inventory as a whole from an enterprise perspective, because now that the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, and all really the DAFAs, the defense agencies and field activities, the OSD components, everyone needs to continue to migrate to the cloud. That's our objective. And to do the great things that we were talking about, like DevSecOps and increasing our use of modern software practice to be able to bring to bear really the futuristic capabilities that we need to do the digital warfare. To be honest, that's where we are. So the JWCC governance that we are continuing to work with the military departments and others to establish actually helps us. And really, it's not just JWCC, it's really all of our cloud in general, including DoD 365, other cloud purchases that we have. We need to know the inventory. We need to have good insight into where we are as a department and rationalize and really make some good decisions as we move forward and how we proceed with cloud use, cloud application, and really for future capabilities, how we're going to make sure that folks are transitioning to the cloud in a way that it makes sense.
Sure. So it's kind of like a framework for people to like guidelines for people to operate in, basically.
Absolutely. We are setting guidelines. That's exactly what we're setting is guidance for the department in not just JWCC, it will be a JWCC guidance, but ultimately we're going to have to look at all of our inventory and how that's going to work as it relates to us using, to the fullest extent possible, the JWCC contract.
Yeah, and I'll just add, having worked cloud for a long time, and probably as long as the cloud's been around for the department, what people don't appreciate is all the work that has to go in behind the scenes, especially on our classified networks. So we're so used to the commercial cloud just being on and our common everyday experience. But what people don't realize is that building out that infrastructure for the cloud to actually be a military capable platform for driving continuous innovation across all classification domains and working with all our partners, there is a lot of work that Sharon Woods and Ryan MacArthur and the whole DISA team are bringing and putting in place. And the JWCC vehicle gives us that direct relationship with our vendors to have a much more direct conversation about how we're going to get from where we are to where we need to be as the Defense Department moving forward. So I'm really excited about that work that's happening. I'm really excited also about, you mentioned the cloud management offices within the MilDeps. There is a ton of work that needs to be done to get us from where we are today to where we need to be in the cloud. Folks that maybe haven't done a cloud migration, lift and shift doesn't work. The cloud is a very different environment from our traditional data centers. And if you don't appreciate those differences, you will get trapped very quickly and inefficient, insecure. It's great when you can take advantage of those things, but that knowledge base needs to be there. And so with the military departments focusing that knowledge base on here, we're going to have these centers of excellence that can then be a force multiplier for how they're going to move from their legacy environment to modernize into the cloud. It's really exciting to be part of that partnership as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like the other piece of cloud here is the software, obviously. Rob, can you tell me a little bit about how you're working to implement the DoD software modernization strategy that was released last year, and you guys recently released an implementation plan? And I'm also interested in hearing from you about how you see software factories playing a role in all of this, because I feel like they've been like a really big part of helping DoD innovate faster through DevSecOps, which is a big part of the strategy too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the three goals for the strategy, number one was accelerating cloud. Number two was the software factory ecosystem. And then number three was in the policies, procedures, the workforce, right? The other aspects. What we realized from the very beginning as we had approached the problem set as just the CIO by ourselves is that we found that it's not just a technology challenge. Actually, the technology tends to be the easy piece. And so in teaming with A&S and R&E to really bring together the three superpowers to drive the department forward under the software modernization SSG, which Ms. Zeleke chairs for the CIO, has been really one of those critical force multipliers to bring the department forward, because we found that like the software acquisition pathway was a necessary piece to move how we acquire software systems and other capabilities. How do we move that into the modern era? If we had continued following the traditional 5,000 approach, we wouldn't be moving at the speed we're moving. To working with A&S or R&E now with also on how do we accelerate new technologies into our production systems and closing what's referred to as the valley of death for a lot of the advanced research stuff. So that's exciting. I think back we've been talking about the cloud, which is obviously goal number one for us. JWCC was a critical item on the implementation plan. We are now, the next steps is really moving into edge computing. So how do we extend what today is primarily a CONUS-based cloud infrastructure with a few edge nodes that the military departments have been bringing out themselves? how do we move the enterprise out to the edge, out to the battle space, to provide a more resilient infrastructure, more responsive infrastructure, and give us data processing and AI capabilities directly within theater. So that's a big step that we're working on right now. You talked about software factories. So the next piece, if we move up from the cloud computing infrastructure to how do we actually deliver and operate systems, that's where software factories play. And I think there's been a lot of confusion because the factory imagery that people form, you think of folks writing software and throwing it over the fence, which is really the wrong picture. The right picture is next generation system that is incorporating in a common platform everything from development through delivery through operations in a quick feedback loop. So folks have said, well, how many factories do we need? Thinking that, we only need a couple, or that these factories are competing with commercial industry. If that's the thought, that's the wrong mindset to take into this, because really think of these as the next generation systems that are operating in a DevSecOps model, that are implementing agile practices, that are responsive and resilient as we move forward. I think the interesting aspect is we've typically have built and funded systems by themselves. And now that we're finding we can build common platforms that can support multiple applications, and the platform or factory can become a product in and of itself. And we have to recognize that these are critical components. We have to, this drives inheritance and speed of application delivery. It's giving us a model for delivering everything from AI to zero trust. If I had to zero trust every system in the department today, that's an impossible task. But if we can have infrastructure platforms that we can zero trust enable, and all of the applications that reside on top of them inherit all of those controls, this is now giving us a viable approach to how do we actually move the department forward. And so when we look at the space now, if you're going to ask how many software factories do we need, well, it's fewer than one for every system, obviously. It's more than we have today. I think we're definitely in an expansionary phase. We are dealing with the set of systems that are at the cutting edge of implementing DevSecOps and agile delivery, and helping them, learning from them. And from a CIO perspective, we're really trying to bring along the next set of fast followers and making that the default rather than the exception. And so we have a lot of work to do. So we're encouraging factories. We are trying to optimize behind the scenes to make factory stand up and factory operations easier, faster, working with a lot of different commercial partners. This is not a DoD only or government only. This involves our commercial industry helping us to move forward.
Awesome. Did you want to add anything to that, Lily?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add there is, as you said, there's a lot of software factories, but I always say, how many software factories? As many as you need to do the mission, right? So that's really what we're about. And one thing that I would add to what Rob, explained incredibly well is we do want to make sure that we don't tax our software factories with mission that they weren't equipped to do. So we do want to put some sort of a guardrail standard. And that's a Robin team. The SSG is working really hard to make sure that we put some sort of flexible but necessary guardrails so that we don't have proliferation unnecessarily of software factories, just like anything else, right? We don't want to just go overboard. But however, as Rob said, we're in the ramp up stage. We don't have enough to do all the mission that we need to do. So in my view, I think where we're at right now is the learning phase as far as, how do we really contain? One of the things I've also heard about software factories, in fact, from folks that work at the software factories is they could be getting demand to the point where that loses the purpose of like quick delivery, right? So that's why it's important to have some sort of standard and not, it's sort of an agile standard is how I would put it, because we don't want to curtail their progress either. For them to be able to make sure that they're able to do their mission without getting taxed. So that is really, but Rob, incredible job. We are so honestly lucky to have Rob as the software chief software officer, and he's been in the department for a long time. And that may be a new title, but he's done this for years and years. So we're very lucky to have him.
Yeah, I'll just add, so just for the perspective of a lot of the community that may not have been so intimately familiar with where the software factories stand today, there's not a single type. Some of these factories are, when it's tied to a specific weapon system, like the F-15, F-16, B-52, B-2, you name it, right? The Air Force has done, on their weapon system side, has done amazing work. So they're moving into hardware in the loop testing that's geared towards those particular weapon systems. They're incorporating model-based system engineering approaches, digital twins. And so you can start to see these pipelines become more and more tailored to the particular, in this case, weapon system. And that's only accelerating their ability to continuously update those platforms to get new life out of platforms that, quite frankly, many of them older than I am, that are still operating, and they're continuing to now drive continuous new capabilities. So it's fascinating to see, even with these really old legacy systems like a B-52 or F-16 type of F-15, those platforms have been around forever, and now they're getting new life. We also see, there's several software factories that are working for sort of the standard, what we consider a web-based business system sort of delivery, and how do we optimize, and so optimize that infrastructure. So there's a lot of quick applications we can deploy, either web-based or mobile-based apps. And then there's some factories that are focusing just on the innovation pipeline. So how do we extend and work with non-traditional and small business partners that may have innovative ideas, but in the past was very difficult for them to break into, a full DoD system development. So some of these factories are, out in commercial spaces. They're easily accessible. They have within their CI/CD pipeline information about what the department really needs, and can take these new ideas and see what works, and then give a pipeline that can go from proof of concept, quick proof of concept, to the next phases in a fail fast sort of model, and continue to escalate it up into the production system if it continues to show value along this path. So it's fascinating to watch both the sort of the incorporating these concepts for how do we modernize everything from really old legacy systems to their next generation AI systems, to how do we use these pipelines and these factories to drive continuous innovation with non-traditional partners. So it's a fascinating ecosystem that's starting to evolve. This exciting time in the software space, obviously.
It really sounds like it. I don't think I've heard someone say that we need more software factories, but that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, if we named it, DevSecOps, no, that's too technical. Like modern platforms, right? Or something like that. Like, yeah, what systems are running? Like, instead of software factory, right?
Yeah.
Innovation platforms, right?
Right.
Resilient, secure innovation platforms. There you go.
That's it.
Yeah. This all evolved organically, right? Around, some of the players that were recognized that the department could do better, that we had to learn from. How are the most advanced commercial industries approaching this challenge? Recognizing the world is changing faster than ever. We have a pacing threat with China. We have an immediate threat with Russia and other adversaries. We need to stay ahead, and this is really the approach, the technology, the processes that we see disrupting commercial industry, And if the Defense Department doesn't move that way, we're likely to be disrupted as well. So there's a sense of urgency on how we need to move in these directions. We are, we're learning on the way with our commercial partners and our allies as we move forward, and really exciting time.
So I have one more question for you both before we wrap up here. I don't want to keep you too long. How can all of DoD take these modernization lessons from software factories and the military department's cloud adoption, DevSecOps, to become more nimble and agile for JWCC implementation, which is obviously a very big priority for you guys?
Yeah, and I think that translates, in my view, to how does the department modernize and speed capabilities to need and keep it secure. JWCC is literally joint command and control. So doing joint command and control, that is what we do today. But how do we make it more seamless? How do we expand the reach globally, where information is flowing from one end to the other seamlessly without having to traverse back to CONUS, Tactical Edge, which Rob and team are aggressively working? How do we do this in a way that we're bringing the workforce along? We need the people, right? So we have challenges. I think we talked about all the enablers today in our interview, and earlier we've talked about JWCC in general and other cloud platforms and the software modernization initiative that we're doing. But really, in order for us to be able to implement one, we need partnership with not just internal to DoD, which Rob explained really well with our ANS and R&E partnerships and others within the department, but also with our industry partners, as you see, the CS, not just with the CSPs, but across the DIB, Defense Industrial Base, and our federal partners, because really this is what we do also impacts them, but also we're in the same boat. In order, our national security and economic security are tied together. So this is a national matter. So I really believe all the enablers that we're starting to bring to bear with cloud and software, modern software, DevSecOps, all of these are the backbones and the foundational capabilities that we need in order to bring capabilities to speed, at scale, and secure. And I'm sure Rob will add to that.
Yeah, I mean, those are, absolutely correct. And, as we're moving forward now, and I described from the set of programs that are at the sort of what we call cutting edge, and how do we continue to expand that? So we are engaged with, our partners in the MILDEP CIOs, engaged with our partners in DISA about how do we move from that being cutting edge to that being common practice. The department is huge. I don't think very many people realize actually how complex it is. It's a large ship to steer, and it tends not to be as responsive as we'd like. So we definitely have a lot of work to do to continue to improve the technology, to continue to adapt our legacy processes and policies to those that are better suited to the world we need to operate in. We need to rethink how we're making investments to move from investing in single programs to investing in common infrastructure, in software factories, in enterprise services. I mean, these are becoming the linchpins of how the modern world and modern military need to operate. I think we're also the engagement with our industry partners. And so, we're working with CISA and with our federal partners as well on, changing our software supply chains, not just internally, but with our industry partners. So implementation of secure software development frameworks, implementation of SBOM. This is a journey that's not just the department's undertaking, but our commercial partners have to undertake it with us as well. We have so long focused on the production and operation side of things, and we didn't care so much about how was the software developed either internally or from our commercial partners that were delivering software. I think the threat model has changed. I think our adversaries are going after the supply chains in ways that we weren't originally prepared for. I think the executive orders and the direction from the White House is spot on. That's moving industry and maturing, not just, like I said, internally, but this engagement model and supply chain improvements that we're working with our commercial partners as well. So it's a lot of change. We wanted it yesterday, but we'll continue to push. We'll continue to push in these directions, continue to modernize our delivery approaches, to modernize our software supply chain, our engagement with industry, and our engagement with the joint staff and our military departments as we move the entire Department of Defense and our intelligence community forward.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for this interview. Thanks for taking the time to talk about all these topics. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of the conference.
Yeah, thanks.
You too.
Cybercast, along with GovCast and HealthCast, is a production of GovCIO Media and Research. For more podcasts and to check out the other shows, head to govciomedia.com. Watch out for new episodes released every Tuesday and Wednesday across our shows. You can follow all of them on your favorite podcast platform. And if you like what you heard, make sure to let us know by leaving a review. And if you have any topics you think we should look into, contact us at newsletter@govcio.com.